Hello, everyone. Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold and Guest Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me as ever, it's Alistair Gold. Ali, how are you?
Yeah, bit knackered. Transfer deadline day will do that to you. We were expecting a little bit of a quieter end to the deadline day because we pretty much thought the Lucas Bergvall decision was probably more likely to be today. And then, well, I guess in a good way, the young Swede decided Tottenham over Barcelona, and that meant for a bit of a slightly more frantic end to the day, which is fine. You know, you'd probably rather be busy than not. Just feels like it's been a manic week, this one. We had the press conference on Tuesday, the match on Wednesday, deadline day yesterday, of course, press conference again today, early trip up to Goodison Park. Hey, a busy week, but it was certainly worse jobs to do, and covering Premier League football certainly isn't the worst thing in the world. Yeah, we pretty much had the day covered yesterday, didn't we? You were on a 8 till 6 shift. I was on the 2 till 12 shift. We had everything covered from top to bottom, really, with the club. And it was a funny day. It was kind of, there were periods where obviously we knew there wasn't too much going on, but we were still making all of our various inquiries around agents, people within the club, people at other clubs, um, various people around, players around the world. But there were so many deals that just didn't end up happening as well, that I'm sure we can discuss. So yeah, quiet day for you or busy day for you?
Uh, Bit of both, really. Still had plenty to do during the day, but I mean, it was a deadline day like no other, really. What we've had in previous January windows, it was
Mm.
really, really quiet. I mean, from a Tottenham perspective, at least Spurs went out and did the business pretty much in the first week or so in the window, but there was always that opportunity that maybe they were going to bring a young player in on a permanent basis, and that's exactly what they've done. I mean, that wasn't the only deal that took place in North London yesterday, because Alejo Veliz, he has joined Sevilla on a loan deal until the end of the season. No option or obligation in that deal. It's purely a straight loan because Feliz only joined Spurs in the summer from Rosario Central, and he's seen as, you know, a key part in the club's future. So just the two deals from Spurs. Obviously, we'll start with Lucas Bergvall's move from Djurgården. Seems to be a very, very good move for Tottenham.
Yeah, certainly seems to be an exciting one. A player coveted by a lot of clubs around the world, and obviously we know that Spurs beat Barcelona to the punch for him. Some kind of suggestions that they made this late hijack to come in and get him off the hands of Barcelona. I don't think it was quite that dramatic. Obviously, he did have a decision to make at the end. That was probably the most dramatic part of it all. But Spurs have been keeping a very close eye on Lucas Bergvall for a while now. As it was put to me by someone within the game, it's like they would be mad not to. It's not like some player that they've suddenly thought, oh yeah, great, let's go for him. Is a player that everyone has been watching very closely in the last couple of seasons. You know, to use a football manager expression, a wonder kid, one of those kind of guys that is clearly going to be a bit of a star if all works for him in terms of development and he steers clear of injuries. And yeah, then Johan Lang came into the club in November and pretty much pushed this deal from the start. It was a young player that obviously with a Scandinavian base that is going to be his, I guess you could say, his strongest area, although he's got a kind of encyclopedic knowledge of world football from what people say. But obviously coming as a Dane from that Scandinavian area, he knows very well the young stars coming out of that area of the world. And yeah, Bergvall, one of them, turns 18 today. Obviously, we should stress the deal isn't done yet. So this is Tottenham Hotspur. Who knows what could happen as the deal reaches? We've seen certainly one player Spurs were trying to get in Antonio Nusa, and his deal didn't end up going through to Brentford with some kind of late complications. But Bergvall, yeah, Hotspur way on his birthday. We got the press conference there today, so I think everyone's going to be looking out for this kind of like mane of blonde hair, trying to see if he's there. I'd imagine we probably won't see him because if in case anyone's not aware, the press conference room is actually on the academy side of the building. whereas the first team side is over the other way. Unless we kind of see him being taken through a corridor to some kind of media duties he's got to do, not with us, but when they do all the fancy videos and things like that. But yeah, we'll all be very much scouring the way the drivers who come in. I'd imagine there'll be a fair few fans outside. There are always fans outside for the players, and I'd imagine they'll be watching out for this young man coming in. But yeah, very talented young player. Obviously, I've done the whole let's watch the videos on YouTube compilations and stuff, because I haven't. I've got to be completely honest. I haven't watched a lot of the Allsvenskan in the last couple of seasons, the Swedish top flight. So my knowledge of him isn't incredible. And actually, he's only got one Sweden appearance for the senior side. I say only, 17 at the time. It's very impressive. But it wasn't like it was this month. It was in like a training camp friendly against Estonia, with a team that was quite experimental, I think, from both countries. But still, that I'm pretty sure that still counts as a senior appearance for him. He's a number 8 that can also play as a number 10. He's a big lad, 6'1", bit of a physical presence to him. Can also get involved in the defensive side of the job in midfield as well. And just watching him play, of course, there's so much still to develop and grow with him. But just on initial viewings, he looks like the physical aspects of the Premier League hopefully won't be a problem for him. And yeah, a lot of the comparisons I've seen have been with Odegaard, that kind of player. A real playmaker in the centre of the park that can kind of play more attacking if you need him to. He actually, before he was at Djurgården, came through a club that I'm going to use the shortened version of. It's Bromma. I think the long version is something like Bromma Poljana, I think. I don't know if the J is silent, but that's the club where Dejan Kulusevski came through as a youngster before he headed off to Italy. I'm not entirely sure even if he got through to the senior team, Kulusevski, but certainly was a young player that came through that very much highly touted academy they've got there, highly rated academy. And it sounds like Kulusevski played his part in the deal as well. Always very helpful having one of the big stars of the Sweden team there to let you know how brilliant Spurs and Postecoglou's football is. And he picked Spurs ahead of Barcelona. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Do you think, had Nusa decided he was going to come to Spurs, do you think they would have done both deals, Nusa and Bergvall?
Tough one, really. I think maybe if they got Nusa in, then maybe they might have left Bergvall. I mean, it's quite a lot of money spending on two players, isn't it? What would that have been? About 35 million, 25 on Nusa, about 8.5 on Bergvall. 2 young kids for the future as well. I think it's a good deal for Spurs. Reading about him, seems a very talented player. Made his mark in Sweden. I wonder if Alfie Whiteman knows about him. So obviously he spent his time at Degerfors on loan. He might have actually come up against him in a game that season, and it was in Sweden. And I think it just shows you, the deal shows you where Tottenham are heading, and also maybe the struggles of Barcelona as well. Because if this was Barcelona of when Pep Guardiola was in charge, maybe it'd just been a simple decision for Bergvall. I mean, Barcelona's still a major pull, even though they're struggling a bit in the league at the moment. But I think it just shows the power of what Ange Postecoglou is building at Tottenham. Tottenham have a number of talented youngsters who they brought to the club recently. Obviously, Ashley Phillips from Blackburn Rovers last summer, Alfie Devine, Bergvall now. We've seen Destiny Udogie and Pat Matassar initially come in and then head back to their previous clubs on loan before becoming first team regulars. And I think the hope will be, Bergvall can follow in Sarr and Udogie's footsteps by becoming that first team regular at Tottenham. And yeah, it's good to see. A lot of people always point to Brighton and Brentford for bringing in these unknown talents and making them household names. And Spurs are very much following that formula at the moment by bringing in these youngsters. And yeah, I think the future does look incredibly bright at the moment for Spurs. I think they're certainly going about things the right way, and I think fans are very happy with what they're doing.
I think Alfie Whiteman might not have crossed over, purely because when he was in Sweden, I think Bergvall would have been at Bromma when they were in the second division. I think, unless they played him in a cup. Let's have a little look. No. So I think he may well have heard of him, though. You know, he at that time, I'm sure everyone in Sweden would have been talking about him coming through and everything. So still a good shout. Still a good shout, I reckon. Yeah, it's a very interesting one. I mean, you know, he's only 17, played 28 times for Djurgården last season, scored 3 goals, 1 assist, played in the Europa Conference League qualifiers as well. It's really strange because obviously their season is over a different kind of period of time, isn't it? It's something like March to November, something along those lines. So even now, you're going to have this funny period where Spurs will sign him, obviously signed outside of the window. So it's not like, you know, he's going to be, it's not like he's going back on loan or anything. He'll be signing to come in the summer. And then you've got this strange period of time where his season won't now start for another month or so. And yeah, and then there'll be about 3 months into it, I guess, 3-4 months into it, and then he'll have to come across in July to Spurs. But it's certainly a hope that he'll be a player that comes straight into Postecoglou's first team. You know, you'd imagine he'll have a good look at him in the summer. But yeah, all the indications are that he'll be kind of ready to kind of show what he can do, a bit like a Pat Matasar type for Postecoglou. And yeah, there's honestly everyone I've spoken to just got this real kind of excitement right now within the club, and also people outside the club and agents and people like that, that Spurs are building this real, almost kind of, I don't want to use generation, but certainly ridiculously talented group of young players at the club, wonder kids, if you will. I mean, if you look at them, even if you want to just go from 22-year-olds down, you've got Van der Ven and Johnson, and then you've got a little bit younger than that, you've got a Doggy and Saar. Kulusevski's only 23. I mean, you know, they signed him as a 21-year-old too. It's an interesting, I think Johan Lang definitely obviously deserves a lot of praise for kind of pushing this deal. I do think the academy itself, the changes were implemented by Fabio Paratici. He changed a lot of the idea of the academy to increase the salary that they could offer, increase the budget to be able to bring in players from other clubs. So we started to see Will Lancashire brought in from Sheffield United for like £2 million. We saw Jude Somerset-Bell lured away from Chelsea. We saw Herbie James brought across from Manchester City. Was it Conor Logan? I'm trying to remember his name now. I think it was Conor Logan came across from Ipswich as well. Yeah, just bringing all of these kind of players into it. And he also did this other thing that was quite interesting, that there was a lot of inviting of clubs around the world to play youth games at Hotspur Way. And I'm sure those clubs probably thought, oh, how lovely. Oh, what a great experience for us to come to Hotspur Way. But it clearly was so that Spurs could go, oh, look at that player. Oh, look at that player. Oh, and they could just kind of nab them for the future when they were 18. And, you know, Luka Vuskovic, we know, obviously, has only 16 years old. And you know, we've been talking about him in recent months. And he was loaned out by Hajduk Split to Radomiak Radom, which is a terrific name, Polish club, where he's going to now get first team football ahead of, it seems like, another loan next season to kind of then push him onto the next level before he joins Spurs in 2025. I mean, with Velis, we're going to talk about in a bit as well. That's another young player that's coming to the club. He's already got his first Premier League goal. Ashley Phillips, signed from Blackburn, obviously now doing great things at Plymouth already for them. Alfie Devine, of course, with him at Plymouth as well. He's a terrific player for the future. I'm intrigued to see whether Devine and Bergvall can both fit into this team next season, because there was a lot of hope that Devine was going to come in next season and really push as a bit of a young Maddison understudy. But, you know, Bergvall's that kind of player as well, a similar-ish kind of player. So that's interesting to see how that goes. I mean, Radu Dragusin is only 21 years old as well. It's just ridiculous. I mean, and then you could even go down like into the academy. You got Jamie Donnelly, Alfie Dorrington. I mean, Jamie Donnelly, we'll speak about the Brentford game. You know, he's a player that clearly Postecoglou really trusts right now. He's getting some minutes in very important moments. Will Lancashire, that I mentioned, I mean, he scored 15 goals this season. He's absolutely flying. Postecoglou really likes him. Spurs turned down a lot of loan moves for him recently because they want to kind of have him involved. You could go down even further than that. You got Mikey Moore, who's a real incredible talent as well. Callum Olusezi as well, another one. Both Moore and Olusezi, they convinced to stay at Spurs rather than kind of many top clubs. I think lots of Man City were looking to get them and teams like that. So, and like I say, Herbie James. So, I mean, I've reeled off loads of names there of incredibly talented players, and I still probably haven't touched on loads of other young players that the club have got high hopes for. So, yeah, there's this real feeling that maybe there's a bit of a golden generation coming through at Spurs right now. Of course, it's about them then getting a chance and the pathway being clear for them. We all want to see new transfers, but that can also have an impact in blocking the pathway for these young players. It's a bit like when Ashley Phillips came in, there was a little bit of worry that maybe Alfie Dorrington's path was blocked. And I wonder whether now with Bergvall the same will be with Alfie Devine. Yeah, it's kind of brimming with talent. Whereas in recent years before that, people were maybe scratching their head thinking, who's going to be the next Harry Kane? Who's coming through? Kind of have Oliver Skip, but who else is going to come through as a real player able to play Premier League football? Now, there's no question. There's so many talented young players there, and I'm excited to see kind of what it means for Spurs' future.
Yeah, I think you've mentioned the host of youngsters there. If you look at Spurs' squad, they've got a good amount of players in like the mid-20s as well. Obviously, Maddison, Bentancur, Bissouma, Richarlison, Christian Romero, players who haven't even hit the peak yet. So blend this team together. This team could potentially go on for a few more years, undoubtedly. Certainly building for the future. I think Sonny probably the oldest.
I was about to say Fraser Forster and Sonny probably feel like old age pensioners, don't they? In this squad, it's so young.
And I mean, Son's what, 32 this summer, this year?
Summer,
yeah. So certainly building a very promising squad that can hopefully stick together for a good few years. Right, we'll move on and talk about the outgoing at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yesterday. That was Ella Velez. He has joined Sevilla on a loan deal until the end of the season. As I said at the start of the podcast, no option or obligation in there for the Spanish club, purely a straight loan. And I think it's one of these, when you're probably looking at the time and you're thinking, Spurs have a lack of strikers at the club, probably best to keep him. But having a real look at it, I think it's the best option for Spurs and the player, because, I mean, you've got Richarlison's clearly the main man up front at the moment, given his record of 7 goals in 7 Premier League games. There's Son, Timo Werner, who can play centrally, Brennan Johnson as well. There's Dane Scarlett as well. I think Dane's probably a bit more suited to Postecoglou's style of football compared to Velez. So you think he's slightly ahead of him in the pecking order. So, I mean, with 16 Premier League games left, no cup games on the agenda between now and May, it probably does make perfect sense for Velez to go across to Spain, somewhere where he's likely to get quite a bit of football under his belt, because Sevilla certainly need a striker at the moment, given their lowly position in the table. I think the 16th, 1 point off the final relegation place. So there's an opportunity there for him, to score these goals and come back to Spurs in the summer and be in a really good place to make a go of it under Postecoglou.
Yeah, it was one of those where I think earlier in the window, before obviously the cup exit, I was a little bit kind of reticent about a Velez loan move, because I do think, other than going all the way down to Will Lancashire, who, I would imagine will get more first team kind of training, certainly involvement in the months ahead now, I don't think there's another big physical striker like Richarlison, a kind of a more direct replacement for him than, Velez was. And that's my only fear, is whether anyone now coming in will be a different kind of striker. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but there was no direct replacement. I think Sonny obviously is a very good player through the middle, but isn't that kind of, he's not going to head the ball and hold the ball up kind of player. And the same, I think, with Johnson and Werner. Same with Dane Scarlett, even Jamie Donnelly, who can play up front as well. They're kind of more mobile, kind of tricky players rather than ones that are going to do a big target man job up top when you need them to be that focal point. But having said that, like you say, going out of the cups, just having these 16 games left, I think Sevilla is a great move for him. Going to a club like that at a high level, who are going to give him minutes. There's been assurances of minutes for him as well. And yeah, obviously Spanish speaking as well. I know it's not exactly the same kind of Spanish speaking, but certainly is going to make life easier for him there. I think it'll be a good experience for him. It's just more regular exposure to European football than he's been used to. He's almost back fit. He's imminent, from what I'm told, to be able to take part in training and stuff like that. So yeah, if he goes there, and we're always doing our loan watch each week on all the players, if he goes there and has a terrific end to the season, he comes back like firing and hoping for a place in Postecoglou's, I'd even say starting 11 if he has a great end to the season. Why not? Obviously Richarlison's absolutely doing terrific things right now, but to give him something to think about. And also, we know Spurs will probably look, I would say, at in the summer a striker. But if Valise goes there and scores, I don't know, anything between 5 and 10 goals as a 21-year-old, yeah, why not? Is he 21? I think he's 2021. Is he still 20? 20, yeah. So, yeah, you wouldn't want to block his pathway either. So, yeah, I think it is a good move overall. And yeah, it was a day of kind of moves that didn't happen almost going out of the club as well. I mean, Brian Hill chose to stay at Spurs over a move to Brighton, which I think is fascinating. I mean, it's a big indicator because apparently he just loves playing and training under Postecoglou. I would kind of maybe counter that, maybe not playing so much under Postecoglou. I mean, would he have started games at Brighton? That was my only question about that one.
I think he'd probably get a bit more game time than he's getting at Spurs, but credit to him if he doesn't want to go out on loan and he believes in himself that he can make an impact in this Tottenham team under Postecoglou, because his son's going to be back from the Asian Cup soon. There's Timo Werner on the left wing. Manus Solomon's going to be coming back from injury as well. So there's certainly options there, and in the past few games Dane Scarlett and Jamie Donnelly have been selected ahead of him coming off the bench. Maybe he's just tired of going out on loan, because it's happened in the past two windows, Valencia and then Sevilla as well last season. It could be a case of, I'll give it a good crack for the next 6 months, and then if nothing's happening, then I'll look at my options in the summer and maybe seek a permanent move away. But I think clearly likes it at Spurs. He's pally with Porro and all the Spanish speaking lads. And yeah, maybe he just wants to have a good crack at it. Just going back to Valise, something we didn't mention, I'm sure Eric Lamela will be taking him under his wing in Seville. And yeah, Valise will be a master of the dark arts, won't he, when he comes back in the summer now?
From Romero to Lamela. Yeah. Oh my goodness, those training sessions. I hope he remembers to wear his shin pads during training sessions there as well. Eric Lamela. What a cult legend he was at Spurs. That's a great kind of pairing, I guess, isn't it? It's someone that knows Spurs inside out, and will continue to toughen Valise up, no doubt, as well. I forgot about Eric. Yeah, that is a nice kind of person to have there, able to kind of guide him through his time there. An experienced head now. God, he must be in his 30s as well, Lamela. God, time's flown. But yeah, so Brian Hill, yeah, I do think he's very settled right now, and I think there's no rush for him. I think the summer he can decide on his future. If he is, sometimes just even when you're only like 22 or whatever he is now, 21, 22, you can probably afford to have little periods in your life where, yeah, he might not be playing regularly, but he's learning loads, enjoying life off the pitch as well with the group around him. And yeah, I can understand it. And also, it's Spurs, so there could be injuries galore coming up. Who knows? And he may suddenly be an option again. I still think there's a lot of talent there. I think it's just, kind of where he fits best, I guess. Who else do we have? Højbjerg. Højbjerg didn't go in the end. Came out after the game on Wednesday and made it clear that, yep, he was going to stay. Do you know what? I mean, we said this months ago. Probably a good thing for Spurs. I do think so. And Postecoglou, again, he proved on Wednesday night, Højbjerg, how important he can be. I do always kind of feel the majority of his important performances come from the bench. It's really weird. I think he makes such an impact from the bench, whereas when he starts games, maybe slightly less so. But I did think he proved again that he's still got more to give to this Tottenham team for the remainder of this season. And we'll see where the summer takes him with a year left. You'd imagine that's when they'll part ways. But certainly, an experienced head, one to focus. And that was the thing he brought on Wednesday, was a real focus to the team that had kind of been bickering and moaning about everything that Brentford were doing to wind them up. Ryan Sessegnon. There was a bit of interest from Premier League clubs in taking him this month, but that never really turned into anything concrete. So he sticks around, and we'll see what the kind of the rest of the season brings for him. Obviously, another backup, I guess, for a doggy. If you're going to say that Ben Davies isn't Van der Ven's maybe backup, although you could argue Dragishin covers both sides. Yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, goalkeepers, Alfie Whiteman, who we mentioned earlier, there was some talk that he might go out, but nothing really appeared for him towards the end of the month. Always difficult with goalkeepers. There is like pretty much one spot in every club if you want to get regular goal time. Well, there is only one spot in each club if you want to get a regular goalkeeper. So loan deals are far more difficult to come by, which is why we see like Alfie Whiteman going off to Sweden for a couple of seasons, why we saw Brandon Austin played MLS football for a season as well. It's just kind of whatever you can get. Josh Keeley, very talented young Republic of Ireland under-21 international. He's playing in the National League right now with Barnet, because you've just got to kind of take what you can get with goalkeepers and get them that experience. But it's at least I would say that Postecoglou has got a deep squad for the remainder of the season.
Yeah, very much so. I think obviously 16 games left in the Premier League season now. I think there's more than enough cover across the pitches. And let's be honest, Spurs weren't going to sign every single, area they wanted to target in the transfer window, because let's be honest, the vast majority of Premier League clubs have stood still in the market. And, credit to Spurs for going out in the first week and bringing Timo Werner to the club and rather drag us in two positions they needed to strengthen. I know some might point to bringing in, a new number 8 for right now. That's not happened. The new striker. These are positions what Spurs could look to strengthen in the summer. I think Postecoglou's always said he's going to take a good few transfer windows to get Spurs to the club he wants it to be at. It's never going to happen where literally everything's done in one or two windows. I think Spurs are in a really, really good position as things stand, and they can use this season as a springboard to go forward next season.
Yeah. What mark would you give this transfer window? I was wondering about whether to ask Postecoglou that today at the press conference, but I just think it could go either way. He could absolutely think that's a ridiculous question, or he could actually give a number. He's a funny guy. He could really go either way with that. What would you give it? What number out of 10?
Do ask him that question just so we can see his response.
Yeah. I don't know if I want to be that guy, but thanks.
I'd give it an 8 or a 9, to be honest. I think it's been a really good window, and that's not just in terms of incomings. Look at what Spurs have done in outgoings as well. Yeah. There was question marks over Hugo Lloris's future going into January, given he didn't move in the summer and he went literally January the 1st to LAFC. Question marks over Eric Dyer. He's joined Bayern Munich on loan, but obviously that he's going to be a permanent exit for him away from Spurs. And the same with even Perisic as well. A number of the young lads have got some really good loan moves as well for the remainder of the season. So I think it's been a really, really good window. I didn't expect Spurs to be so active in terms of outgoings. I always thought that, bringing a new centre back and strengthening attack. I think it's been really, really good window.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think you're spot on. I think 8 pushing 9. I think it's been that good. I think they've gone out very early and got the priority signings. I mean, Dragishin, I think, is the most expensive transfer of the January window. I don't think there's anyone that tops that. I mean, what was he, about 26, 27 million? Yeah, I think everyone else kind of bulk were loan signings, like Calvin Phillips obviously was a loan signing. Yeah, I think they had a very clear plan. They went out and did it. And when we kind of said that from the start, didn't we, that they would probably go for the plan was a striker or a forward that could play across the line, a central defender, kind of the biggest priority of all, and then a young probably player that would head back on loan, which kind of not quite what's happened, but it's the same idea, and a number 8. And weirdly, that's exactly what they've done. They've done all of the above. So yeah, I think they've ticked a lot of boxes there for Postecoglou. And like you say, the outgoings. I mean, this list: Lloris, Dyer, Perisic, Reguilon, Spence, Tanganga, Devine, Phillips, Craig, Keeley, and Valise, the last one. I mean, that's just ridiculous work. That's fair play. You've got some big wages off the bill. You've got some real kind of experienced heads and now no longer part of the club. They're kind of, it's a new era. You've got loan players that have come back. You've got them back out on loan for varying reasons. You've got young players getting development loans that are going to be really good for them. I think you've got to praise the recruitment team. I think Johan Lang and his team coming in have done a terrific job this month as well. And obviously in the months leading up to it with the planning that's gone in. So yeah, I think it's a really good one. Like you say, in the summer, I think a striker. I think, depending on how fantastic Valise's development is, but I would imagine they'll still look for a striker. You would think probably the way he's going, Werner deal becomes public. Everyone knows about it already. Permanent. I'd say probably another centre back. Unless he decides that Ben Davies is going to stick around, and then you've got Ashley Phillips and Alfie Dorrington. But I would imagine maybe another centre back. And then, yeah, I guess you're just then looking to kind of areas where other players might go. And let's say if Emerson did go, if Emerson went somewhere because he wanted to play week in, week out, maybe you look for another right back. Maybe another left back if Cess moves on. And who knows, Ben Davies might decide at a stage of his career he wants to start every single game. And I think it becomes more about kind of just either upgradings or replacements there. But I think this window in itself, I think they've done a really good job. And I hope they get the credit for it because, we know what football fandom can be like. And you kind of just always look to the next thing. And if they lose, let's say, Everton at the weekend, which obviously would make you happy, they would suddenly everything turns and we should have signed another, I don't know, striker, we should have signed this or that. But I actually think on the face of it, they did some really good work in this window.
Yeah. Right. Before we discuss Wednesday's 3-2 win over Brentford, Ali, do you want to let everyone know about the benefits of using NordVPN?
Of course, the Golden Guest Talk Tottenham podcast is sponsored by NordVPN, and you can use the service in a host of different ways to enhance your internet experience. NordVPN is the fastest VPN in the world, and that means there's no buffering, there's no lagging, and you can stream your favorite shows from anywhere in the world without your bandwidth throttling. It's a service I've used for many, many years, long before they came on board as the sponsors of our show. Just because I was able to watch things that I'd want to watch in the UK when I was abroad. Not to say I wasn't just enjoying myself on a holiday, but sometimes you want to settle down and watch a show still while you're relaxing that you would watch back home, and those pesky international boundaries sometimes stop you. Whereas with Nord, I was able to switch my device to thinking it's back home, and I was able to watch them. And also, it can help you in certain regards with terms of security when you're using public Wi-Fi and things like that to stop people getting into your device. Not only that, but the outlay on a NordVPN subscription is cheaper for you in the long run. That's because you can purchase streaming services or bookings from other countries at a much cheaper rate. For example, you can book flights from another country, and it could be cheaper doing it that way too. So it means you're paying out for Nord, but you're saving money overall. There's a whole host of other benefits from signing up to NordVPN, so why not give it a go? You can grab your exclusive NordVPN deal by going to nordvpn.com/goldguest to get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan, plus 4 additional months for free. It's completely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee.
Right, let's move on to Wednesday's 3-2 win over Brentford. A game with plenty of talking points. First half, not great from a Tottenham perspective, although they did start the game well, first 5-10 minutes before, Brentford went ahead through Neil Maupay. Second half, Ange Postecoglou changed things at half-time, and Spurs were very, very good for about a 25-minute period. Brentford gave them a late scare through Ivan Toney, but Spurs managed to get 3 points on the board, which puts them into the top 4. So, Ali, thoughts on the game?
Yeah, it was Spurs in the first half did like everything that Postecoglou hates in terms of they just so easily got distracted. They were so played into Brentford's hands, and the Postecoglou thing that he hates the most is stoppages. He hates it. He wants his football. It's meant to be this relentless form of just never-ending attacking waves of football. He doesn't want the team to ever kind of slow that down. And he knew it was coming. We saw it at the G-Tech early in the season, the first game of the season. Brentford did exactly that. I think I remember him saying something similar after that game, that they tried to interrupt the flow very deliberately. And just Spurs reacted to everything. And to be fair, it was like experienced players like Maddison. Maddison was complaining about everything. I mean, he admitted himself after the game. His wife would say, he would be the first to say, or his partner would say, he is a moaner. He likes to complain about things. And my goodness, when your main playmaker is constantly stopping, and look, I know it's frustrating, and I know when decisions aren't going your way or they're overreacting. I mean, there was it Collins, when Richarlison tapped him in the stomach? He went down like a sniper had taken him out from across the top of the stadium or something. And there were lots of moments like that. And of course, Maupay's celebration, which, yes, it was deliberately to wind up right in front of the South Stand, doing the darts, doing the Maddison celebration. But let's be honest, as it proved to be, a little bit early there. Frenchman went a little bit early, as he admitted afterwards. But then it did produce this weird Instagram spats where he started going on about how he'd scored more goals and had less relegations than Maddison. It was like, yeah, you're a striker. You're meant to score more goals in the midfield. That's not something to brag about. I thought that was really weird. And obviously, I like Brentford and I like Thomas Frank. I think he's a terrific coach, but you never know what the rest of the season holds for them. If they were to have an awful run and get relegated, that's going to come back and haunt him as well. Very, very. He's just a strange character, isn't he? In terms of, he just seems to really like to wind up opposition kind of clubs and their fans and everything. I know. Certainly, North London, both teams have had their kind of fair share of the player. But at halftime, Postecoglou sat them down and just really kind of went into them about not allowing these breakages to the game and stoppages in play, and just to crack on. And I don't think it's any coincidence, especially with the couple of changes he made as well to give them a bit more drive and focus. It just blew them away in the first 10, 15 minutes of the second half. But yeah, do not, if you want to get on Ange Postecoglou's good side, make sure you keep a game of football flowing. That is the first thing he wants from you.
Yeah, just going back to Maupay's celebration. I mean, he's just a wind-up merchant. He was on it from the first minute. I think he'd gone into Christian Romero a couple of times, and you're thinking Romero has just gone absolutely go through him at some point.
Yeah.
On the celebration, I don't mind like the celebration, but it's like, why is Maddison then, patting him on the back of his neck, and then Maupay's hitting him on the chest? You just don't need to get involved in that. Let your football do the talking. But I thought that 11-minute period after half-time was just sensational from Spurs. I think it's always the case, Spurs once to get one goal, they're always going to get another one after that. And, fair play to Destiny Udogie, who didn't have the best of games, extremely mixed, especially at his own end of the pitch with his role in both of Brentford's goals. But, jolly on the spot to equalise for Spurs, and, credit to Timo Werner for his role in that goal. And then the second one as well, when he put the ball on the plate for Brendan Johnson at the back post. And I always thought Johnson would probably get a breather against Brentford, especially with Maddison coming back in that 45 minutes on the bench. He just seemed to, work wonders for him. He scored, and I think when you score, it doesn't matter what type of goal it is, whether it's like a 35-yard rocket or goes in off your backside, it just gives you a bit of a confidence lift. And he looked more like his old self, I thought, in the remainder of the game. And then Richarlison getting the goal as well. Some good work from Maddison in the box. And yeah, I thought Spurs certainly deserved it. They made life difficult for themselves at times, especially in the first half. There was, I think, 3 really good Brentford opportunities where they just broke, and there just seemed to be anyone back for Spurs, and maybe another team would have put them to the sword. But yeah, I thought all in all, they deserved the win.
Yeah, on Johnson, it was really interesting. After the goal, he did this lovely flick to Kulusevski, who then hesitated with his shot. And if he'd hit that first time across the keeper, it would have been one of the best goals of Spurs season so far. It was a lovely move. And Johnson, you could see the confidence flowing through him. It's like, it's not rocket science. Players need confidence. And he got it. And like you say, I did think, and actually Postecoglou said it after the game, he felt he'd played a lot of football, needed to just spend 45 minutes or so just from the bench, seeing the game from a different perspective, and he was able to come into the game knowing exactly where he could hurt them, and he did. And Brendan Johnson admitted after the game, he said, "Look, it's no secret, I haven't been playing particularly well recently, but yeah, it was about making sure he gets into these goal-scoring positions that the manager wants him to get into, and that was what he did, and fair play. And yeah, Werner was excellent. He's getting fitter and fitter. You can see that now, and he's doing a lot of defensive work as well. He's starting to get that in his legs. I do think the 2 changes at halftime made a difference, even if I thought they were quite differing performances in that first half from Bentancur and Skip. I thought Bentancur was really off it. Didn't look his old self, and it's understandable. Look, the guy has played a handful of games across the last year. He's absolutely has every right to be rusty. It's just weird. I think just because we saw him kind of come back, and obviously in that first half hour against Villa before he got his ankle injury, he was like just the best player on the pitch. But it's understandable that he's not going to be quite where he wants to be yet. I thought Skippy played well. Skippy made quite a few really good interceptions in that first half. But I think the key for Postecoglou was that he wanted, like you say, the balls over the top just were hurting Spurs every time. And he wanted someone in Højbjerg who he knew would be disciplined and just sit there. And it's interesting because he doesn't seem to trust Skip in that role, which is weird because that's Skip's role, the number 6 role. That, if anything, that's the place he's going to be more comfortable in. But, brought Højbjerg in. Højbjerg was excellent. I thought that 45 minutes he came on. And like you said, Brennan Johnson came in and made a real impact as well. It was a very attacking midfield. To suddenly have Højbjerg, Maddison and Kulusevski all in there together. I mean, that's incredibly attacking. But it worked. Like you say, the football in that 10, 15 minutes after the break, maybe in 20 minutes, they were just cutting them apart every time they flew forward. And it shows the kind of, when they get 2 pacey wingers in Werner and Johnson flying at the same time, defenders don't know what to do with that. You just cannot counter against 2 teams that have got the pace to take 2 players out of the game on either side. That's why you end up with the space at the other post to do stuff like that. And Richarlison, I thought, was excellent as well on the day. I thought that was another one of it's almost weird. It's like, I think if you take out the cup performances, and obviously you've got this 7 goals in 7 games, he's been superb in this run of Premier League matches. He's battling away. He knows that the place is his, and I think confidence-wise, that's a big thing for him. He knows that Postecoglou trusts him. He's working so hard defensively as well. He's enjoying himself. I mean, the roar he did in Morpay's face as he walked past him was like, it was just classic Richarlison. He just doesn't care. And it's, to be fair, it's exactly what Morpay probably would have done to him if it had been roles reversed. So I don't think he can complain about it. But yeah, there was a lot of positives. There were a few. I didn't think the defense was great. I thought Romero had some iffy moments, but grew into the game. Van de Ven, I don't think it was one of his best performances ever either, but he still, brings a certain level. And Destiny Doggy, yeah, he had a strange day. He was involved, I think, in all 5 goals. He was brilliant going forward. Obviously, scored his goal. Instrumental as well. I think it was it Richarlison goal? I think he had drove forward with the ball for that one as well. But yeah, defensively, just had a couple of moments where, as a young player, just switched off. Lost the ball, obviously, the first time for the first goal with a bit of a sloppy pass that was intercepted. And then the second one, I mean, as he said himself, you could see him saying it on the pitch. He's just, I didn't see him. Just did not see Ivan Toney there standing right in front of Vicario. And Postecoglou was brilliant about him after the game. I asked about him, not with the intention really that Postecoglou was ever going to criticise him, but almost because I kind of knew that he was going to have his back. I just said, obviously a bit of a mixed bag for him. What did you make of his performance? And he came out exactly as I kind of hoped and expected he did. And he was just saying, no, people make mistakes. That's absolutely fine. He did so much for the goals we scored. And he's a young man learning, and he's going to make mistakes. And I love that. That is the no fear thing that we've always spoken about Postecoglou. He gives these players an environment in which to flourish. He takes all of that responsibility off their shoulders and said, no, it's fine. It's okay. As long as you make up for it at the other end, as long as you keep doing what I'm asking you to do. And he's fine with players taking risks. That's absolutely fine, because it means that they're going to keep trying to play away from the press and things like that. And I thought he absolutely dealt with it perfectly. And that's why the players love playing for him. And that's why players are turning down the likes of Bayern and Barcelona to come and play for him, because everyone speaks so highly of not only the football, but also the way you're treated by Postecoglou. And yeah, I thought that was it was kind of almost like an important night for Destiny Doggy, despite the mistakes, or maybe with the mistakes, because he can learn from them, but also showed how important he can be going forward when he makes the right decisions at the end of his runs as well. Because that's one thing for me about Doggy, and we saw it in a couple of the recent games where he'll go on these really long runs, and then at the last moment, the ball or whatever he decides to do with it isn't quite the right thing. But he was superb in that aspect. Yeah, George Sessions from PA was moaning at me because I gave him, I think, a 5 in my player ratings, because I just felt like, unfortunately, the two mistakes were so big and so key that they actually did end up counterbalancing what he did offensively. And he was, oh no, you can't do that, because Spurs wouldn't have scored the 3 goals they did if Doggy wasn't playing. And I kind of said, yeah, that's great, but Brentford wouldn't have scored their 2 goals either. So I do feel it all balanced up in the middle. But yeah, I like the fact that people are sticking up for a Doggy, because of just, you can see the path he's on, and long may it continue.
Yeah, number of positives to take from the game. I think Richarlison got man of the match, didn't they? Been nice to see him get the man of the match award, because I've seen it on Instagram
rather
recently.
than nicking it off other people.
Yeah, it's like Porro and Bentancur or whoever he's taking it off and had his picture with. But yeah, so he'll be in confident mood going into Saturday's game at Goodison Park against Everton. 12:30 kickoff, really early start. I mean, that's just a terrible pick, obviously, for Tottenham fans making the way up to Merseyside. Going to be a tough one. I don't think Spurs haven't won at Goodison in the last 5 games. Their last win there was the 6-2 game in 2018.
People, I'm stunned that you know that information.
Yeah, well, got to do your research, haven't you?
yeah, right. You just knew that anyway. It wasn't research. You're keeping a running tally. I know it.
No, the past few games have just all been draws, apart from Everton's 5-4 win in the FA Cup a couple of years ago. And I think we saw back in December, what you're going to get from a Sean Dyche team. It's going to be a tough team to be. Everton on the day. Spurs, were very, very good going forward, and perhaps a tad unlucky not to leave Tottenham Hotspur Stadium with a point in the bag, given disallowed goal. Anna Danjuma's about a couple of millimetres away from scoring as well at the end of the game. So, yeah, I think Ange knows what exactly he's going to get from Everton.
Yeah, it's an early kickoff. I got set off at 5:30, I think, on Saturday morning. Tomorrow morning. Guys, tomorrow, isn't it? Yeah, which I'm not looking forward to. And you're abandoning me. You're not even going to be in a press box with me. You're in your season ticket holder's seat in Goodison Park.
Gladys Street. And yeah, I've done my time in that press box. I've done so many games. I honestly think the last Everton Spurs game I watched as a fan was 2015-16.
Wow.
Or was it 2016-17? I think it was your first game covering
It
Spurs,
was.
the 1-1 draw.
Lamella and Barkley both
Yep.
scoring. Yeah.
Yeah. That was it. So, yeah.
Oh, that's really weird. What a weird symmetry. That was the last time you watched them as a fan. It was my first game covering them as a journalist.
Yeah, I think I've pretty much done every game at Goodison since, bar, I think it was the 3-0 win, 2017. Kane scored a couple.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is going to be a very tough game. I think the quick turnaround isn't helping Spurs either. You know, less than 72 hours between the games. I think Everton, an extra day? They play Tuesday night, didn't they?
Yeah.
So that's going to be a help. He's going to have to make some changes. What changes would you make?
I'd probably make a handful of changes. I think in my team, I went for Dragusin to come in for Mickey van der Ven. I think just the quick turnaround. Van der Ven recently coming back from an injury. The need to give Dragusin some Premier League minutes at some point. I think that's a change that makes sense. I think Pat Matasar comes straight back into midfield. I think they've really missed him in the middle of the park recently. Just that energy, and ability to drive forward. I'd take Benson Kerr out. I thought he struggled in midweek. I think he, just like Brendan Johnson, probably just needs a bit of a breather. He's come back from 2 bad injuries, and he's not going to be right on it from his very first appearance after those injuries. So you just need to give him a bit of time. I think Højbjerg deserves to start in midfield after midweek, and I think the other change was, for me, Brendan Johnson coming back in. I dropped Dane Kulusevski out. I thought he struggled at times against Brentford, and he's played so much football recently. I think it's one of these, you just need to give the players sufficient rest at some point when you have that opportunity. And I think Ange certainly has that chance to do now with players returning from international duty and injury. So I do think there'll be a couple of changes here and there.
Yeah, it's some tough decisions to make. Yeah, Dragusin surely, God, that was tough to say. Dragusin surely is the has to start this game. If you're going to start him at all, it has to be in this little run. I'd agree on Højbjerg. I think he deserves to start. Bentancur is an interesting one because ordinarily it would almost be heresy to take him out of the lineup. But I guess if you've got Højbjerg, Sarr, and Maddison, I guess Maddison's fitness is going to be interesting. See whether he's ready to do it so quickly. Start again. If not, maybe you end up with Bentancur, Højbjerg, and Sarr. Maybe. Actually, you probably would have to play Kulusevski, wouldn't you? Yeah, Kulusevski wasn't great. He did start the move, I think, for the second goal. I'm pretty sure it was him deep in the Spurs half, setting Doggy away. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I'm not entirely sure on Johnson, whether he starts already or whether he has another game as a sub. I just think Kulusevski is so important to Postecoglou. I think he'll find a way to kind of get him in there. But I would imagine, 2 or 3 changes, certainly. Because, if you want to play the kind of football he wants to play, the high-energy stuff, less than 72 hours after the last time they did it, you have to put some fresh legs in there. In a weird way, 3 of his midfielders only played 45 minutes. Sarr hasn't played since, was it Monday night? Obviously, he's done some travelling in the process as well. I wonder if maybe he looks at the fullbacks, whether Doggy and Porro can continue to keep playing every single game, or whether we maybe see, I don't know, Emerson or Davies, perhaps. I don't know. I hadn't really even thought about the fullbacks. They have been kind of drilled into the ground with the amount of game time they've had. So, it'll be interesting to see. Look, if he makes a few changes and they lose, he's going to get hammered for it. And if he doesn't make changes and they look leggy and tired, he's going to get hammered for it. It's one of those where you just got to win the game. Otherwise, people are going to criticise whatever you've done.
Yeah, he's still putting out a good team regardless, even if he makes changes, because Tottenham do have a good squad now. And this is the thing, if you've got a 25-man squad, use it. So, I think we'll be seeing a few changes here and there. Right. I think we'll call that a day on today's podcast. We'll be back next week to reflect on the Everton game and then also look ahead to the match against Brighton and Hove Albion next Saturday. So as ever, thank you for listening in, and just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. To grab our huge discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/goldguest. You can receive an extra 4 months for free. There's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the episode description box.